Welcome to Built for This. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. My podcast features captivating conversations with intriguing people who have found purpose in their lives through their career, family, or life experiences, and just why they were built for this. Through the stories that you will hear, I trust that you will be inspired and encouraged to find just what you were built for. So let's get started. And welcome again into the studio for another edition of our show, Built for This. And boy, what a pleasure for me to welcome into the studio today's guest. He is the current founder and chief technology officer for Newtec Business Solutions, but you're probably going to know him as number 30 on your roster for the Dallas Cowboys. Timmy Newsome is my guest. Timmy, thank you for coming and being on the show.
It is certainly a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Before we talk a lot of Cowboys, and I was at KRLD Radio in Dallas during your career with the Cowboys, so very familiar. Spent a lot of time covering you, interviewing you. But let's talk first of all. What I know you got introduced or got fascinated by technology and that whole thing while you were playing, and I want to talk about that as well. How players took on other careers. But tell me about Newtec Business Solutions. What you founded that company and what you do there.
Yes, it was founded in 1991, and we are managed service provider specializing in unified communications and collaboration products and services. And so a lot of it, currently, we do a lot of cybersecurity protection and things of that nature, and then I develop software as well.
Mm-hmm. So to get to that point, what was it? Was it coming out of college, or once you got to the Cowboys that you found this affinity for this kind of work and start getting introduced to it while you were still playing in the NFL?
Well, I majored in business administration and minored in computer science. Mm-hmm. In those days, they didn't have a major in computer science. So the best I could garnish in college was a minor. And when I got here and made the team, Gil Brand asked me what I wanted to do in the off season. And I told him that I would love to be able to do some computer programming in the off seasons. And so he found me a job, and that's what I did for the rest of the 10 years I was there.
And what about that aspect? I think a lot of people today who follow the NFL or the Dallas Cowboys or any professional sport might find it really intriguing that in the off season, certainly back in those days, players had full-time jobs working at other places. And obviously you came into the league knowing that would be part of your lifestyle?
Well, it was encouraged.
Yeah.
The salaries in those days weren't very great. Mm-hmm. My base salary my rookie year was $30,000. I was actually making more than that in technology at the time. And so it was kind of a catalyst to continue to have a career outside of football. And when football was over, guys just transitioned in those careers.
And you have, I've heard you speak before. You have quite a leadership and legacy-based message when you talk to people. So you come out of Winston-Salem, and what were your thoughts and your aspirations? I guess probably would like to play in the NFL. I know you were a Green Bay Packers fan, maybe hoping they might draft you somewhere along the way. But what were you thinking back at that time when the draft was coming up, which I guess would be 1980
Yes.
at the time you were coming in?
Well, first of all, it was more of a mistake than it was on purpose. Mm. I didn't realize that I had an actual shot at playing in the National Football League probably until the end of my junior year. But having said that, there was always in the back of my mind a possibility.
Yeah.
And then when it actually happened, I was obviously elated and surprised. And so when I got here, I just decided to make the most of it and see what would happen. I mean, they were really loaded at the running back position. Mm-hmm. So I had no preconceived notions about making the team and going on any further. But it worked out that way, and that's how it played out, and I was happy that it did.
Now, you come here, you mentioned the team was loaded, so we'll go back down memory lane a little bit now. Since I was covering the team at that time while I was working in radio. So we're talking about players on the team like Tony Dorsett, Ron Springs is in the picture, and others. And so you come in as a rookie, so a sixth-round pick, mm-hmm. And just your thoughts stepping onto the practice field after getting drafted and then knowing what might be ahead of you? What were you thinking as you thinking what your task would be?
Well, I guess the first thought was, how am I going to break into a roster where there are already established young fullbacks and halfbacks on the team? And I really didn't know how that was going to materialize in any stretch. And I just decided to take one day at a time. As a rookie, there were about 120 of us as rookies on the field, even before the veterans arrived.
Wow.
And so we were there 2 weeks in Thousand Oaks, California, before the veterans got there. And then once they arrived, the playing time and the practice time was very minimal.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of take the opportunities that were given to me very briefly to see if they thought enough of me to keep me on the roster, and that's what happened.
You, how did your playing days at Winston-Salem help you prepare for what the challenges you would face as a rookie? I know you were asked to change positions, after you got to the Cowboys and learn that and accept that, but the preparation going in and, here, like you mentioned, here's America's team who had the great run in the 70s, and now you're arriving on the scene.
Well, it was somewhat similar because in college we had a lot of talent at the running back spot as well. So I averaged in my 4 years about 16 carries a game. So I didn't run a whole lot, but when I did, I made the most of it. And so I was able to garnish some accolades and praise on the college level. And when I got here, the opportunities were very sparse. But I made the best of those opportunities and made some really big plays to get noticed. And I think that was the main catalyst for me making the team. And plus I was 6'2", 240, and I ran like a 4.5 40.
That helped a lot. I'm sure that played into it.
So they were intrigued by that as well. So that helped a lot.
We talked about at the start that you're a sixth round pick from this college, but a lot of that has to be attributed to someone like Gil Brandt, who really revolutionized the scouting efforts of the National Football League with the way he went about it, because he built a legacy about finding players at different levels, late picks who became major parts of teams.
Right. And so one of the things that helped me is that preceding the draft, I got a lot of promotional material from the Dallas Cowboys. They were sending posters of the cheerleaders and the team.
Yeah.
They emphasized that, free agents have an opportunity to come and really contribute and play. Although I got drafted, having that kind of pre-draft information really gave me a lot of confidence in knowing that if I did well, there was a good chance that I could play and contribute.
Well, you come in and you play for one of the icons of the National Football League, and Tom Landry, and you're there, I guess, till the end of his coaching career. But your, I guess, first impressions when you get to meet Coach Landry and go through how he runs a team and what it was like to play for someone like that.
Well, he was very structured.
Yeah.
He required guys to be on time, be diligent about what they were asked to do, and do it well. And so it was in keeping with all of what I saw in college and what I saw in high school. The similarities are very striking, to be honest with you. The method in which he organized what he was expecting of us to do was similar to what I faced in college, and it was similar to what I had in high school. So the preparation was there. It was just a matter of understanding the nuances of a pro system, understanding the responsibilities of a fullback and what was expected of me. That took a little while, but once I was able to do that, it was fairly simplistic in its approach.
Your preparation, you mentioned that from high school to college helped you for someone like Coach Landry's system. How important is that for players or for just individuals in life to have that foundation, that framework of structure, to know that whatever their next opportunity might be, here you go from, like you said, you were already into computers and technology and things, which probably had its own sort of framework and structure. But the importance of having that in a life when you find your next challenge? And for you, it was going to be at the National Football League.
Well, he loved smart players. And so that I knew early on because of the guys that I was around when I got to training camp. And even before, in the off season, I was around a lot of smart football players. And so going to training camp as a rookie, you saw that. And being able to digest the playbook at a very rapid pace, because they throw a lot at you real fast.
Yeah.
And being able to do that. The wild card for me was trying to figure out how I was going to do something that I had never done before, and that was to block. And so with the help of Robert Newhouse and Ron Springs and Scott Laidlaw, they all taught me how to do those things and understand the nuances of being able to position myself to be effective as a blocker.
Now, you could have, a lot of players might have said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a blocker. I was a running back in college. This is what I do. I make things happen. What was it in your inner self that said, no, I'm going to take this challenge on and do it?
You know, it's funny. When I was drafted, I walked into my Coach Hayes' office, who was my college head coach. And Coach Hayes said, well, the good news is you got drafted. He said, the bad news is you're going to be asked to do something that you've never done before. He said, I don't know whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
And so coming here, knowing full well that Tony Dorsett is really the key runner on the team and having to switch those positions, I figured, okay, well, I'm 240 pounds. You know, I run a 4.5 40. Then the only other obstacle is me wanting to do it. And so I made the commitment to want to do it, and I think that was what kept me motivated in doing something that I had never really done before. And so that was the catalyst.
And you excelled at that, obviously, for a long time in the backfield there. Talk about blocking for a guy who is legendary in the Cowboys history books, Tony Dorsett. But you get a chance, like you said, with different things that worked out, and now all of a sudden you're blocking for him.
You know, he was a very easy guy to block for. He hit the hole really fast, and all I had to do was to position my body between him and the blocker, and he was gone. And so it made it really comfortable and easy for me to do my job as a blocker.
What about those years? I'm going to get to some of the other business side of things, but those years in the 1980s, a lot of expectations because of the previous decade. Roger Staubach has retired in 1979, and now that's the year of the 80s where he played in a lot of NFC championship games, a lot of disappointment, but a lot of great accomplishments. When you look back on that decade and what you were able to contribute to that team, what do you take away from it as what you accomplished, what your teammates accomplished during that time?
You know, I've thought a lot about this over the years. We had some outstanding football players during that period. We went to 3 straight NFC title games, lost to 3 different teams.
Yeah.
And 2 of those losses were, fairly close. The San Francisco game is the one that really hurt.
Yeah.
When Joe Montana threw that ball to somebody by the name of Dwight
Clark.
And then, of course, we played the Redskins and lost to them, and played the Eagles and lost to them. And each of those games were on the road. We were favored in all 3 games, but for whatever reason, we just weren't able to make that transition into the Super Bowl like we had hoped. The one thing that I will say is that we had a very high potent offense. We scored a ton of points.
Yeah.
But we also turned the ball over a lot, and we had a lot of penalties. And that's really what kept us out of Super Bowls, is the fact that we had too many penalties and we had too many fumbles and turnovers and things of that nature. And that was the reason.
What did you learn about yourself during those years about, people, when you're playing for the Dallas Cowboys and America's team, it's a spotlight always, and it's either the Super Bowl or nothing, even though you've had these fantastic winning years, and the Cowboys had a string over 20 years of winning seasons. But so the expectations are enormous, obviously, on you. Lots of successes. But it's sometimes, from the media and others that it was like, well, what went wrong and what happened? What did you learn about yourself to be able to withstand whatever that pressure might have been and come back the next year and compete at the level that you did for almost a decade?
My focus primarily was on being able to play at a high level every once in a while. There were some games I may go 3.5 quarters and not touch the football.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get down on, let's say, the 15-yard line, and I'm asked to catch a pass or run the football or make a key block. And so I have to stay mentally alert during that period of time. And I think the one takeaway from my career is that I played at a high level sparingly and well enough to stay around for 10 years.
That's a good point. Some players on any sport might think that, well, if I'm not in the starting lineup and playing every possession or every inning in baseball or whatever sport might be, that I'm not a part of the team. But you touched on something I think is important, to stay mentally sharp. And I know Coach Landry was all about that, being prepared and staying mentally sharp. Is that just self-discipline, and as an individual and a player that you've got to learn that in that kind of a business to be ready when your number's called?
Without question. During a practice week, you can't practice everything that you are going to run on game day. So the trick is whether you can visualize mentally what you have to do to play at a high level on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I probably practiced 20, 30% of the plays that we ran, and we probably had 120 plays going into any given Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to visualize and understand what it takes to play at a high level, even though I didn't practice a lot of those plays, that's tough.
What about the continuing brotherhood of playing with players like you played with during the 80s? I mean, you could go down and name them: Too Tall Jones and Dorsett, Danny White, and on and on and on. Do you like to continue to keep close contact with the guys even now? Here we are 40 years past those days.
Well, yes. In fact, just this past weekend, I had a chance to visit with Tony Hill.
Mm.
I was at his home for a Super Bowl party.
Yeah.
We play pickleball together,
okay,
which is nice. And then I go to Bob Bruning's house, and I see Roger Staubach there. Cliff Harris and the late D.D. Lewis was there a few times. So we get together every so often because we realize that we're mortal.
Yeah.
And our time is not on our side as much as it used to be. So it is really nice to be around a group of guys that had that level of success, just to hear them talk about how things used to be and the way they used to do it on the football field. They were very intelligent people
mm-hmm.
who cared a lot about what it was they were asked to do, and they did it at an exceedingly high level. The other thing that struck me is that those guys had a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I've never seen a group of guys with so much confidence in all my life. I mean, I'm walking out of the practice field as a rookie, and they just knew that they were the best ever. And I thought that was the coolest thing, just to be around that level of confidence.
And is that just part of the Dallas Cowboys mystique? The Dallas Cowboys are, every franchise probably thinks they have that, and the Green Bay Packers could be that, the New York Yankees, different sports. But the Dallas Cowboys, who haven't been to the Super Bowl in a while, but still carry that mystique. And so when you were with the team, did you feel that specialness, that was just something different about this organization?
Well, let's be very clear. They had gone to 5 Super Bowls prior to
that
1980.
Helps. You're right. They had made a name for themselves. You're right.
So they had every right to feel that way.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, it was across the board: coaching staff, the players, the trainers, the managers, everybody, had a lot of confidence in those days. And it was refreshing to be around that kind of talent every single day.
Now, your career is coming to an end as Coach Landry is there. What was that like, transitioning out of the game, though, for you, as there was a coaching change, an ownership change with the Cowboys, and you had decisions to make, and now you're off to the business world.
Well, at the end of the 88 season, I was going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into Coach Landry's office and said, Coach, I think it's time for me to call it a career. And he says, Timmy, I think you really need to think about that. He said, we've had a really horrible year. We finished, I think, 3-13.
3-13.
And he said, we all feel bad right now. He said, give it some time and let's talk, in a few months. So I said, okay. And then a few months go by, and my running backs coach, Al Levan, took a job with the San Francisco 49ers. Coach Landry had warned all the coaches that he didn't know what to expect going into the 89 season. So if they had opportunities elsewhere, they should take them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back into his office and I said, Coach, I think I'll try to play another year. He says, good. I'm glad to know that you're going to do that. And so that was the year they had that Plan B free agency.
Right.
So you had to declare guys whether you were going to protect them or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted to know what my status was to determine whether or not to protect me or put me on the open market. Mm-hmm. And so I told him I was going to come back. Well, a few weeks later, the ownership changed, and Jimmy Johnson comes in. Of course, Jerry Jones is the owner, and Joe Brodsky is now the running backs coach. And he called me in and asked me what my intentions were. And I said, well, I'd already made the commitment to play, and so I'll come back and play. I said, however, if you feel you don't really need my services anymore, you can just tell me, and I promise you I'll sail off into the sunset, and I'm happy. I'm good.
Yeah.
And they ended up drafting Darrell Johnston in the second round that year. And I go into training camp, and pretty much normal things started happening. But the issue of a lot of veterans were retiring. Danny Wright retired, Randy White retired, Doug Cosby left. So a lot of guys were leaving. It got to a point where when I got to training camp, there were only three guys that were old, two guys older than me. That was Ed Jones and Tom Rafferty. And so I was the third oldest player on the roster. And so after seeing how things were going to materialize in training camp, I just went to Coach Johnson and asked him if I was going to still be a starter, and he told me no. And he says, look, this is a business.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, you make too much money. And he said, now I tried trading you, but because you talked about retiring a few months ago, nobody's going to give me anything for you. He said, but these are some teams that are interested. And if you are interested in doing that, then contact these teams. And of course, I got released, and then I didn't try to play anywhere else after that. And I just thought maybe I just transitioned into my technology business, and that's what I did.
And you did.
I did.
One more question about Coach Landry. When you look back on what he meant to the team, the organization, and to you personally, what are your thoughts when you take away from someone like that who obviously the transition, he doesn't, he's out of a job. It's the only thing he's done for so long, and then, passes away not too long after that, really. But when you look back on playing for Coach Landry and what he meant to you as a man and as a leader.
It took me a few years to understand how he operated in terms of what his expectations were. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest compliment that I can pay him is that he understood what it took to win. And he had certain expectations for every player that he coached. And he would come to me and say, look, I want you to do three things. I want you to get me to tough yards. I want you to catch the football, and I want you to block. And he said, now, if you can do those three things, then you'll be here. He said, if you can't, you won't.
Pretty clear.
It was pretty clear. And once I understood that, he was very easy to play for. And I found him to be very pragmatic in his thinking, very measured. And so whenever he asked me to do something, I could sense what he was looking for me to do. And I'll give you a really good example. We were undefeated and we were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I was in on third downs, and he had thrown an out route, which is a 5-yard out route on the other side of the field. And Danny threw the ball and just barely missed me. So we flipped it, and he threw the same exact play on the other side of the field. And I'm thinking to myself, if I get this ball, he wants me to score, because there was only like 50-something seconds left in the game, and we were down 7 points. So I catch a 5-yard out and go down the sidelines and score. And so those are the kinds of things that he was asking me to do without verbally telling me to do them.
Right.
Because he did it on the other side of the field and did it again, I sensed, okay, this is what he wants out of me. And so that's the way I was able to deliver.
I know you have a number of things that you're passionate about, and certainly in your business side. But a couple of things. I know the mental health awareness and involvement for the youth that are facing that these days, and the NFL has got a involvement in that sort of thing. But talk about your advocacy for that and how important that is, and what you're trying to make awareness and for youth and kids to be aware of now, and what they face in life every day.
I tend to do things that kind of give me gratification in terms of what it does for me and for the outreach.
Yeah.
So when I see instances like that, it teaches me a whole lot about myself. And that advocacy is translated into the things that I try to do in the community. Every time I think something is horrible on my end, I just walk out of my house and I go to a certain part of Dallas, and I see people who are in a whole lot worse situations than I am in. And I said, well, I have no problems. And so it helps me understand more about me, to see things in that nature and to be able to help and give back, because I know if I'm able to continue to do it on a very even keel, then my life will have balance and meaning.
Do you see that as part of your life journey, having played for the Dallas Cowboys? It obviously automatically puts you in a little different position than someone else that might want to be an advocate, but it puts you maybe a little further up in front of the line to be heard. But does that become part of your life mission now, other than just the business side? Because I know that you just touched on it right there. Social good is something that I know that you want to make sure that the people that are on the marginalized in our community are heard from.
Well, it even preceded, being a part of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, my parents are very vocal and very much advocates for the community. I would see my mother help individuals in their lives, and people with grown men or women would walk in her house and ask her to interpret a document. And she was a school teacher.
Yeah.
So I saw that at a very young age. And when I got here, when I saw the Cowboys were very in tune to doing the same kind of things, it was just a natural progression for me to be able to do it because I saw so much of it growing up. And so being able to continue that legacy, if you will, is refreshing for me, because even now, when the Cowboys ask me to do something and go someplace, I'm already there, and I'm already willing to lend a hand and help however I can, because it makes a difference.
Yeah. And back to the mental health thing, it's such a prevalent topic right now in everything, sports and anywhere, whether you're playing sports or not. But to be able to have a platform and a stage to do that. You mentioned that it's you like doing that, but the importance of getting those roots from your parents and from growing up, which a lot of these kids or individuals or even older maybe didn't have that framework to be instilled in them. How fulfilling is it for you to be able to at least share some of that framework with someone else and might make a difference?
Well, first of all, I participate in it.
Yeah.
I go to New Orleans, every few years, and there is a psychiatrist there, there's a psychologist, there's a caseworker, there's a neurologist, there's community people. So there are a collection of individuals who are there to help me understand more about myself in a way that I never thought possible prior to getting into the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that outreach and go into the community and use those tools as a basis to helping others. And so it is much about helping me so that I can help others navigate those things. And I think that's the most gratifying part about it.
I like what you said about, and you said this a couple of times about it's helped, different things have helped you see that about yourself, that you see it in yourself. How do you see that? I mean, how much could we benefit, or as individuals, no matter what our walk of life is, if perhaps we stopped for a moment and held that mirror up and said, what can I learn from this before I start to try to espouse all these great words of wisdom, but finding ourselves, finding what's going on in ourselves. I mean, there seems to be a lot of people searching for that, certainly in their youth and teens.
You know, when I was a rookie, Gil Brandt brought all of the draft picks, took them to dinner at a place called Tony Romo's.
Yeah.
And he said, to have a long career here, the one thing you're going to have to be able to do is to accept criticism. And that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. For anyone at any walk of life.
At any walk of life. And to be able to figure out how you can do that will help sustain a career in a way that you never thought possible if you have that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and to me, I interpret that to mean you do these things well, you have the preparation that you need to have, then you can find gratification in the things that you are paid to do. And so that's what I took away from it. And I take those lessons into the community in much the same way. Everybody wants to be great.
Yeah.
But how do you pay that price to get there?
Yeah.
And when people don't achieve it, they wonder why they don't. Well, if the preparation was never there, then you're rolling the dice as to whether or not you're going to get on the other side.
Yeah.
And that happens so much in pro football that it's just unbelievable.
I'm intrigued by that story about Gil Brandt and talking about taking criticism. The Cowboys organization at that time, probably unlike maybe the Patriots later on, but three men in key positions of Tex Schramm, Tom Landry, and Gil Brandt. The public side sees who they are. Okay, Tex did the contracts, Tom was coaching, Gil was drafting. But from the player's perspective, you just gave a great example. What was that like in that structure of an organization of three men that maybe taught you things that really had nothing to do with football, but maybe with business and with life?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, let's take contracts for it.
There's a good one.
I never went to Gil Brandt to talk about my contract. I went to Coach Landry.
Okay.
And I'd say, Coach, I want to discuss my contract. And he never said go to Gil.
Okay. Yeah. I don't do that.
He said, well, let me take a look at what you're making and we can talk later. And he would always call me back and we would discuss it.
Yeah.
And so now Gil Brandt would interject at the back end of it, but he was the person that I communicated with about what I thought I should be paid. And there was never any confrontational aspects to it. He was very, frank and forthright with me. And so a lot of things happened in that way for me because I had a really good sense of where I needed to go to find that strength in determining what my worth was. I mean, Dennis Thurman helped me a lot. He was a former defensive back who ended up playing a long time and was a coach later. I had gotten an F at the season's end. I guess it was my third year. And he saw it in the paper. And so he called me one night and he says, look, I want you to do me a favor. He said, talk to Coach Landry. I said, Dennis, Coach Landry didn't give me the F. A reporter did.
Yeah.
He said, talk to Coach Landry. And so the next morning I called Coach Landry's secretary. I said, I'd like to see Coach Landry. And I go in a few days later. I said, Coach, I just have one question. I said, am I as bad as an F? And he laughed.
Yeah.
And he says, well, no, Timmy, you're not. However.
Oh.
And when he said however, now I knew where the F came from.
Uh-huh.
And so you talk about mental health. Once I understood the source, I was able to address the problem. I didn't need to go criticize the reporter because that's not where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It came from the head coach.
Very good point. When you transition out of the playing days and now you're into what you had prepped for in college and even while you're playing for the Cowboys and start this business, how did the foundational principles that you had as a player and certainly in the structure of this Cowboys organization and Coach Landry, how did that help you form your company and build the guidelines that you're using today?
Well, first of all, in order for me to play at a high level professionally in football, I had to have some stability in my personal life that allowed me to feel comfortable enough to be proficient in that sport. And so, and this is the unique part about the Cowboys in those days, they encouraged guys to go out in the community and make money because they understood that football is a very helter-skelter kind of business. You can get hurt, you can get traded, you can get benched. Any number of things can happen, and they want guys to be mentally prepared for those nuances. So for me, I took that literally and understood that each year was a blessing in football. And if something were to happen that didn't fall in my favor, I always had that off-season job to fall back on, to participate in, that kept that balance. And it was that balance that allowed me to continue to play at a high level and not feel constrained by, let's say, going out on the field still hurt when I shouldn't be going out on the field, and taking the time to heal properly. And so I stayed healthy basically throughout my career because I had that balance.
When you look at your college, and I know you remained very near and dear to Winston-Salem, been got a lot of honors there and Hall of Fame recognition. How do you look back and think, if you'd gone somewhere else or if you'd played for some other school or some other coach, or could there have been different opportunities, or do you just say this was my fate, this prepared me for the National Football League and for business ahead? I mean, when you look back on your college days, your thoughts and memories there.
Well, quite naturally, if I had lived in a perfect world, I probably would have gone to a Power 5 conference, but Power 5 conferences didn't think I was good enough.
Yeah.
And so I had some things I needed to work on to get myself to an even playing field 4 years later.
Yeah.
And going to Winston-Salem State was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the reason I selected Winston-Salem State was because Coach Hayes had been an assistant coach at Wake Forest the previous years, and he was highly regarded as a great recruiter and a strict disciplinarian. And that's what I needed going into a college. And so when I got there, my ambition was to play corner or defensive back and not play running back.
Yeah.
And he called me and said, I'm going to switch you to running back. Gosh, running back. I said, Coach.
He get hit a lot.
He says, look, he said, I've got some outstanding defensive players. I need somebody that can run. And that's where I'm going to put you. And so for the next 2 to 3 years, that's where I was, and I got really good at it. They had a really structured approach to the aspects of athleticism and told me what they wanted me to do, and I followed it, and I was very coachable. And after my junior year, I made all the All-American teams a person could make and things of that nature. And we had 2 undefeated regular seasons in the 4 years I was there. And so I enjoyed it. It was the best place for me for the time in my life that gave me an opportunity to flourish academically and athletically. And that's the one takeaway that I relish to this day. And plus, I was surrounded by some really talented football players. We had 2 guys that ultimately became medical doctors.
Yeah.
Of the group of guys I played with over the 4-year period, I'd say at least 20 of them have advanced degrees.
Wow.
My roommate has his doctorate. And so there were some smart guys on that football team.
When you look at coming out of there and going to the NFL, a lot of players now, the college landscape has changed so much. You've got the NIL and the transfer portal, and so their mindset may be completely different from where you were. What encouragement or what words of advice would you have for any student athlete who is playing at that level and maybe has aspirations to play at the next level, but also needs to have in the back of her mind a career for, even if you are great, like you just said, if you get to the next level and you get injured, that's over. What words can you share with anyone?
Well, I'm a little biased, but I think NIL is a great deal for student athletes. Mm-hmm. And here's why. You have an opportunity to go to an institution to play a sport and it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. So either the coach decides to get rid of you, or you decide to leave, mm-hmm. but you're not financially or academically or in a way contractually obligated to that school except on a year-to-year basis. Mm-hmm. And if you're not good enough, you'll go someplace else and play.
Right.
If you are good enough, then you hit the portal if you want and go somewhere else and play. And if you're at that upper echelon, you're going to stay right where you are. But here's the best part. Those guys are graduating at a higher number now than they were under the old system.
Interesting.
Because they're chasing the money. Mm-hmm. And the only way that they can chase the money is that they have to stay eligible long enough to graduate.
Yeah.
So now you're having guys getting advanced degrees and they're playing 6 and 7 years and they have a master's degree.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And so Indiana doesn't win a national championship without name, image, and likeness.
Right.
Duke doesn't win or go to the ACC championship without a name, image, and likeness. And so you have a lot of mid-tier Power 5 schools who are now premier programs mm-hmm. because they can go out and get the best of the best and come to their schools, and they pay them well to do it, and they're able to play at a high level. And so I think it's a great opportunity for student athletes to say, look, I can understand the business side of this stuff coming out of high school. Now they're taking those business classes. They're understanding the business side of the sport, because in order for them to go to that next level, they have to understand the dollars that are on the table and take it and use it to their advantage.
And maybe that's the misperception or misconception that a lot of people are having with NIL. They're just seeing the dollars, and schools are spending enormous amount of money. But you made a great point about the graduation rates, and that the only way these student athletes get the money is if they stay eligible in school for as long as they can. And as you said, what's wrong with that?
Right. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
Now, as a coach, okay, I have a problem.
I got a new roster every year.
That's right. He's got to work.
Yeah.
And that's probably where they see a negative, is that every time they recruit someone, they have to bring someone in and then replace that person because they may hit the portal. But the challenge is trying to figure out how to keep everybody happy during that period, where you may have a guy who's maybe not really developed, and he wants to play right now. Mm-hmm. And so he goes in the portal and see what happens.
Well, Timmy, I know it's been 40 years since you played, but you're still doing leadership and leaving a legacy. And you seem to be just as excited now as you were maybe when you're playing days about what you're doing through your business and just trying to elevate people in their lives. And is that the journey you just continue to be on right now?
I'm having a blast to be able to continue to work in the technology sector, to do those things It's very gratifying, and I'm very blessed to be able to do it, to have the mental capacity to do it, to have the resolve to do it, to have the drive to do it, and still provide some assistance in the community. You know, I'm enjoying it all, and I thank the Cowboys for allowing me to be a part of their Legends community, to be able to continue to keep that outreach and keep it going. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, you know, when I left the game, I left it healthy. And I didn't have any, you know, lingering injuries or things of that nature. So I'm happy that I was able to go to Winston-Salem State University. I was happy that I came to the Dallas Cowboys and play for a long time and do those things. And I'm still involved in the sport. And so that's great.
Well, you left quite a legacy with the Dallas Cowboys, and you're continuing to build on that in your life and what you're doing now. So just keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Timmy. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Built for This. Be sure to follow Built for This on your favorite listening platform and share it with a friend. Join me on the next episode when I will share entertaining stories of inspiration, encouragement, and purpose-driven experiences. What are you built for? Built for This is produced and recorded by Heart Media DFW.